The Russia and Japanese War was a major conflict between two powerful empires. It took place from 1904 to 1905. The war had a profound impact on the balance of power in East Asia. It also had lasting consequences for international relations. Russia and Japan were both ambitious powers with their eyes on expansion. Russia, a vast empire stretching across Europe and Asia, sought warm water ports in the Pacific. These ports were important for Russia's trade and navy. Japan, a rapidly modernizing island nation, aimed to secure its sphere of influence in Korea and Manchuria. The two empires' ambitions clashed in the late 19th century. Russia's Trans-Siberian Railway, intended to connect Moscow to Vladivostok, alarmed Japan. Japan saw this as a threat to its interests in Korea. At the same time, Russia's lease of Port Arthur from China further fueled tensions. The stage was set for a showdown between the two empires. The world watched as these rising powers prepared for war. The outcome of the conflict would have far-reaching consequences. The roots of the Russo-Japanese War lay in the complex interplay of imperial ambitions, economic interests, and strategic considerations. Both Russia and Japan coveted influence over Korea and Manchuria. Korea, strategically located between Japan and China, was a tempting prize. Manchuria, with its vast resources, was another area of contention. Russia's advance into Manchuria, particularly its construction of the Chinese Eastern Railway, alarmed Japan. Japan had its own designs on Manchuria and saw Russia's actions as a threat. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the growing tensions proved fruitless. Adding fuel to the fire, Russia's lease of Port Arthur from China in 1898 sent shockwaves through Japan. Port Arthur, a strategically important naval base, gave Russia a significant advantage in the region. Japan viewed this as a direct challenge to its security and regional aspirations. The rivalry between Russia and Japan intensified in the early 20th century. Both sides engaged in a diplomatic tug-of-war, seeking alliances and support from other powers. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the geopolitical landscape of East Asia. The Russo-Japanese War erupted on February 8, 1904, with a surprise attack by the Japanese Navy on the Russian fleet at Port Arthur. The attack, a daring gamble by the Japanese, caught the Russians off guard and gave Japan the early initiative in the war. The Japanese siege of Port Arthur, a lengthy and bloody affair, became a focal point of the war. The Russians, determined to hold on to their strategically vital base, put up fierce resistance. The siege dragged on for months, costing both sides heavily in terms of men and resources. Meanwhile, on land, Japanese forces advanced into Korea and Manchuria, clashing with Russian troops in a series of hard-fought battles. The Battle of Mukden, one of the largest land battles fought before World War I, resulted in a Japanese victory, further weakening Russia's position. At sea, the Japanese Navy, led by the brilliant Admiral Togo Heihachiro, proved to be a formidable force. The Battle of Tsushima, a decisive naval engagement fought in May 1905, marked a turning point in the war. The Japanese fleet, employing superior tactics and firepower, decimated the Russian Baltic fleet, which had sailed halfway around the world to confront them. Section 4. The Tide Turns. The Battle of Tsushima sent shockwaves through Russia and the world. The destruction of the Baltic fleet exposed the limitations of Russia's military might and sapped its will to continue the war. Japan, on the other hand, was emboldened by its string of victories. Despite its successes, Japan was also feeling the strain of the prolonged conflict. The war had taken a toll on its economy and manpower. Both sides, recognizing the futility of continued fighting, were open to the possibility of peace negotiations. The United States, under President Theodore Roosevelt, played a key role in mediating an end to the war. Roosevelt, concerned about the growing power of Japan, saw an opportunity to limit its gains and preserve the balance of power in East Asia. Peace talks between Russia and Japan began in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, in August 1905. The negotiations were tense, with both sides reluctant to make significant concessions. Section 5. A new balance of power. The Treaty of Portsmouth, signed on September 5, 1905, officially ended the Russo-Japanese War. Under the terms of the treaty, Russia ceded the southern half of Sakhalin Island to Japan. Russia also recognized Japan's paramount interests in Korea. In addition, Russia agreed to evacuate Manchuria and lease Port Arthur and the Liaodong Peninsula to Japan. The Treaty of Portsmouth marked a turning point in the history of East Asia. Japan's victory established it as a major power on the world stage. The war shattered the myth of European invincibility and signaled the rise of a new Asian power. The war had profound consequences for Russia as well. The defeat contributed to growing unrest within Russia, culminating in the Revolution of 1905. The war forced Russia to reassess its foreign policy and focus its attention on domestic issues. The Russo-Japanese War had a lasting impact on international relations. It highlighted the growing importance of naval power and the shifting balance of power in the world. The war also demonstrated the potential for conflict between rising powers in a multipolar world.